Okay, hopefully I spelled the medicine right today. Yesterday I hit the wrong button and it didn't say carboanimalis. It said I forget what it said, but it wasn't right. So today I'm hoping I have spelled it right. I get up early and I start going through all this stuff, and I do the board the day before. I get that all going, and sometimes I make mistakes there because there's a lot to these medicines. And then in the morning I get up, probably about 5 or something, and I start going through the medicine to see what's important, what I want to point out. Now with carbo animalis was charcoal from oxhide. Yeah, they burnt oxhide, and carbo veg is burnt vegetable matter. Carbo veg or vegetable charcoal is itself a product of imperfect oxidation. So carbo veg patient is not getting the oxygen they need. They're sluggish. They're a little heavy set. They're can't catch their breath. They're just not getting the oxygen they need. So imperfect oxidation and disintegration, where things disintegrate, are the keynotes of this remedy. It contains small quantities of kali carb. Now, kali carb is a remedy we have, and that would have some of the symptomology of kali carb. Yesterday's was what was carboanimalis? Yesterday's had calc had those some of that in it. So within any substance, you have different chemicals, different stuff, and they basically, like I said, carbo veg is kali carb. So if you went to kali carb, some of the, if you looked up some symptoms of carbo veg, you'd get kali carb there too. So you'd have to determine between kali carb, carbo veg, and a few others. The deodorant and disinfectant properties of charcoal in bulk had already been discovered when Hahnemann was at work on the materia medica. So they do have, I don't know, food grade or something like that, charcoal that you take in your stomach, that you put in water and drink, and that will get rid of a lot of this flatulence and stuff like that. So they already knew that this stuff, and septic, take care of septic situations, all kinds of things like that. So it, a carbo veg patient, they have bad smells coming out of them. This charcoal is like a deodorant. So that's like kind of a doctrine of signature. Same with burning. You burn the vegetable matter, there's burning within this medicine that people have. That's, it's just a doctrine of signatures. It's very interesting. It's a deodorant, disinfectant, and antiseptic properties are more enhanced in potency. So this charcoal that they were using, they already knew the effects of charcoal, taking it internally and using it for septic situations, all that kind of stuff. They already knew that. And he says in potency, whatever it does physically, it can do a lot better in potency. And potency is a homeopathic medicine, which I go over in my uh, a free course in my community. And the idea in my community is you come in, you browse around, you'll get a lot of this stuff and be able to look up medicines and see what they're good for and that. There's some emergency in there. There's some I'm putting all kinds of things in there, different categories that you can go in and, like emergencies, asthma and allergies, I think is in there. And then it'll give you symptoms of allergies and asthma, and medicines that are good for those symptoms. So you can utilize that stuff. And then I got a whole list of medicines with their keynotes that you could say, oh, I have this kind of asthma, and it says these medicines. You can go look at that medicine, see the keynote, see if it matches. Then as I go through these medicines in the book, they're all put in there, and you can go in and say, well, let's look at that medicine deep. Oh yeah, this medicine matches good, or it doesn't. I might consider one of the other ones, and I guarantee you will eventually get through your asthma by doing that all on your own. you know and in my community, I'm creating other courses that are a lot deeper, but I want to come in and be able to spend more time with all this stuff, because I take 30 minutes to go through these medicines, and I go over sometimes because I want to get all this information into that community of mine, and that way you can if you're looking at a medicine, you think this matches, you can go in and look through the whole, just listen to it, even just put it on and listen to it, and on your phone or whatever, with headphones, and go through and say, yeah, that match is pretty good. Let's see. Provings with the crude carbo-veg and the potentized substance show that the latter were much more powerful in their effect on the organism. So the provings, which is what this is, what I'm going over, that's in the Materia Medica, was much more powerful. These brought out the fact that there is an exact correspondence between the effect of the crude charcoal, the actual substance, and potentized carbo-veg. Both are antiseptic and deodorant, and with carbo-veg patients, they got bad smells coming out everywhere. The signs and symptoms of decay and putrefaction are the leading indications for this medicinal use. So the food decays when they eat it, this flatulence and that. So there's a lot of stomach stuff, and that stomach stuff is connected to other situations like headaches and things like that. So I always ask, where's this headache coming from? Is it a gastrointestinal headache or what? Putrid diseases, let's see, decomposition of food in the stomach, putrid diseases, and ulceration, symptoms of imperfect oxygenation of the blood. Carbo-veg antidotes the effects of putrid meats or fish, rancid fats, salt meats, and also the pathogenic actions of china, lactoses, and mercury. That's why I always say, if you took china and you were proving it and you got all these symptoms, you got sick from it, you can give carbo-veg to offset that. And it offsets any effects from bad meats, salts, fats, rancid fish, and actually putrid rancid vegetables. A carbon ointment made by, this is very interesting, I don't know, carbonizing a wine cork, plunging it into a clear fire, and then in its still glowing state, so as you're burning the cork, you put it into in its glowing state, you put it into Vaseline, and mixing thoroughly is regarded as a sovereign remedy in anal irritation and hemorrhoidal troubles. It's not a vegetable, but it's the cork. I don't know what the cork, maybe cork is vegetable, sort of. It's a wood. So that would be vegetable, basically. So they say burn the cork, the wine cork, and put it into a salve and mix it all around while it's still glowing, and you got a salve for hemorrhoids and stuff. And this medicine, Carbo, you can just use Carbo-Veg, is a great one for hemorrhoids and all that stuff. Suitable for tonic conditions, tonic where things aren't moving or functioning, the liver's not functioning, the lungs aren't functioning, sometimes not functioning. Lack of reaction, carbo-veg patient is fat, sluggish, lazy, and has a tendency to chronicity of complaints. So, and even in alcoholics, nux vomic alcoholic patient would be thin, fast, all that. The carbo-veg patient is heavy set, sluggish, lazy, all that kind of stuff. Persons who have never fully recovered from the effects of some previous illness, so never well since. They had pneumonia, just like me. I had walk-in pneumonia later in life. Now, I haven't thought of carbo-veg, but later in life, I always get lung flus and stuff like that. So any previous illness that they're never well from, you would consider carbo-veg. And there's a few other ones for different diseases. Schoolgirls, boys are sluggish, slow to learn, suffer from night terrors. Okay, so let's get into carbo-veg because there's a lot at the end. Carbo-veg, vegetabilis, carbo-animalis, vegetabilis. We'll say carbo-vegetabilis. Venous circulation, so the veins don't circulate as much. You'll get a blueness in the skin, which they call cyanotic. Vitality becomes low, so the vitalities they just don't have energy. And they will get sick. The vitality goes low, you get diseases coming in. Body is blue, icy cold. That's that cyanotic from the veins not working well. Cold, loss of fluids. So they're always cold, and any loss of fluids, whether it's nose, vagina, sweat, diarrhea, those loss of fluids really affect them. They're almost anybody that's almost lifeless. This is all threes. And as I went over the emergency, my Robin Murphy talks about you come upon a person, you look at, oh, what happened? Was it a shock? Did they get electrocuted? Did they have a hit to the head? Or they, what's going on? And if they're lifeless and that like that, not breathing, not moving, they're white, they're blue, they're cold, he said carbo veg a lot of times will revive them. Even other medicines, you'll hit them with them, they're out, I forget which one it is, but something will jerk, and oh, that worked, so keep going with it. So it's very interesting. It's all in course I'm making on emergencies. Must be fanned. They need air very bad. They want a window open, they want cool fresh air. They can't, because they're not able to get the oxygen they need. Better belching. So anytime they belch, their heart feels better, their stomach feels better, everything feels better. And this is for people that have high living with rich food and they get sick. They're always eating very rich food, sugars and cakes and all kinds of rich food. You would consider this. Warmth, deplete, warmth and depletions. So uh, they're better from warmth. They do like warmth, but they need that air blowing on them. They need a fan or something blowing on them. Depletions, they don't like depletions is any energy depletions, depletions of urine, too much urine, diarrhea, sweating, any depletions. They're better from. So if a lady has leukorrhea and it's not coming out, they get sick. Once it comes out, they're better. They have a fever, they have this and that, they sweat, they could get better. So any depletions, because the body's always trying to push the disease from the internal to the external, so it's always trying to push things out. When like even to the skin, you put something on it, you stop the sweating, you do things like that, and it drives the disease back in. You may feel good at the time, but it drives it back in. Disease and dissipations. Okay. Oh, depletion. So exhausting, disease, and dissipation. Dissipation of your energy, whether through sex or too much rich foods or dissipation by overwork, different things like that. You would consider carbo vegetabilis. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Anybody that was poisoned by carbon monoxide, you right away give them carbo veg, and that should revive them and help them. Food poisoning. So you come across somebody who tried to kill himself with carbon monoxide, or it happens in the house where the furnace isn't working and that carbon monoxide builds up. You would consider carbo veg. Food poisoning, meats, fish, vegetables, any of that rotten food, you would do carbo veg. Arsenicum's another one. And within the thing, they show you how to differentiate between arsenicum and carbo veg. Shock, any kind of shock. Surgery, they have surgery, they'll, afterwards they'll have all that build up gas in their stomach, and you would consider carbo veg. Aversion to dark, loss of memory, irritable and anxious, and they're stupid. I don't want not. They're just not as bright. They're not functioning mentally. And if you give them carbo veg, that could release that situation. Great distension of the abdomen, flatulent colic, excessive flatus, so they're farting all the time, severe pain in the back, the small of the back, unable to sit. So the sitting, and even when they lay, they got to have a pillow under their back because it so hurts so much. Burning behind the shoulders, so the scapula and all that burning back in there. So there's a lot of burning. They burnt the vegetable substance, and you get burning in a lot of situations, burning in the hemorrhoids and stuff. Heavy, sore, weak chest on waking. They wake and it's just sore and heavy. Sore is to touch. Heavy is it feels like a weight on there. Burning with hemoptysis. Hemoptysis is bleeding. So they got the burning and they might cough up blood. Brown and yellow spots on the chest. That's an interesting thing. You see someone with brown and yellow spots, you'd think of carbo veg. I think there's a couple other ones that have that, unless I went over this earlier. I'm thinking of the last time I went over this medicine. As if heavy weight on chest, or sorry, in eyes. So you got a heavy weight on the I don't want to go to the eyes yet, right? Nope. Heavy sore weak on the heavy feeling on the chest, heavy sensation weight on the eyes. I'll just keep going. And hemorrhages with congestion. So there can be some blood with congestion. They got congestion in the head, and they got this hemorrhages in the eyes. Head feels like it's floating. Anyways, head feels like it's floating. I'm getting off here. Deafness or otorrhea. So they got ear problems, and they got this deafness in that. Now this is dry mumps, metastasis of mumps. So even the mumps, would metastasize and become a problem there. But it can cause ear, deafness in that from it. And it definitely got otorrhea. You got discharges coming out, and they probably smell bad. We did the eyes, blue, cold, puffy in the face. So there's that coldness, that blueness, a lot of coldness and blueness. Now the head can be hot and the rest can be cold. They have a cold sweat. Hippocratic, which is death-like. That's a 3. So they look death-like. Cooper Med and opium has that. So you see you have to be determined in between Carbo Veg and opium and Cooper Med for anybody that has that deathly blue, cold look. They have cracked lips, so the cracked lips are there. Menses are early, copious. The blood is pale, burning in hands and soles during the menses. Menorrhagia, which is a lot of bleeding. Leukorrhea is thick, green, milky, and they do feel better when that leukorrhea is coming out because the body's trying to push something out, and you can clear that up with Carbo Veg. There we go, Carbo Veg instead of Vegetabilis. Carbo Veg. Causing itching and burning. So there's a lot of itching and burning. There's that burning again with Carbo Veg. You burnt the substance, you got a burning situation in the whole body. Aversion to milk, meat, fat things. Fat things is a 3. They don't like any kind of fats. Causing flatulence. So they're having a bad digestion situation. This person desires salt, coffee, sour, or sweet. Now, desires salt could be nat myrrh, a few other ones. Coffee, sour, or sweet. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there. There's not a distinctive thing that they desire. Cold sweat, head is hot. So the head's hot. They got a cold sweat and cold limbs. So head is hot, cold limbs, and cold sweat going on. Overindulgent. Now that's from a fever and things like that. Overindulgence, it comes from. That's a 3. So they got this headache and that from overindulgence, all the rich foods and even alcohol. Now, like I said, alcohol would be, Carbo Veg would be a heavy person compared to Nux Vomica would be a thin person. Hair, that's how you differentiate basically somewhat. There's more to it than that, but hair is sore, it falls out easily. So even touching their hair is sore, but it falls out easily, especially after pregnancy and that. That's a 3. Continuous anxious palpitations, worse eating. Anytime they eat, there are palpitations in their heart, and they're very anxious, gets worse. And that's probably the buildup of the gas causing all that. Pulses through whole body, so the whole body's pulsating. You can feel the heart beating in it. Cholera suppressed. Okay, protein in urine. So that's albuminuria, something like that. But they got protein coming out in their urine. Nephritis is a disease of the kidney. Septic situations. Any septicemia, causes, kidney problems. Diabetes, urine is suppressed in cholera. Any cholera situations and the urine suppressed, Carbo Veg would be considered. Limbs are heavy, stiff, feel paralyzed. So there's that heaviness again. The eyes, the liver. That's the liver. Yeah. Oh, no. Heavy, stiff, paralyzed. That's the limbs, the eyes, and what was the other heaviness? Heart area, the chest. They go to sleep. That's a 3. So they feel paralyzed, but the limbs go to sleep on them because of that venous circulation they're not circulating as good. Cold from knees down. That's a 3. So is going to sleep. The things going to, the limbs and that going to sleep. Now, Trump has some situations like this with they said the venous stasis or venous, whatever. It's not circulating right. So you might consider Carbo Veg in that situation. Pain in the liver, jaundice, which is a yellowing situation from overeating rich food. So the liver's affected trying to process all this rich food. Lungs, there's a big one with lungs. This is a big lung remedy, a lot of colds, flus, all that. Must be fanned. Cough with burning and it's spasmodic. So the cough, there's spasmodic cough, and they got burning from that cough. They must be fanned. They got to get air. That's all threes. Hoarseness, worse in the evening. That's a three. Whooping cough with blueness. So they're coughing so much they're turning blue. Expectoration is thick yellow. Calibic, Hepersulf. There's a bunch of them that have that thick yellow mucus that you would have to determine between in these lung situations. Discharge of prostatic fluid while straining the stool. So they're obviously having prostate situations, and the prostatic fluid comes out when they stool. Swollen testes from mumps. So that's that metastasis of mumps, and it affects the testes. Breath is cold. That's a three. So they could be laying there not moving, and you put your hand by there, and that breath is cold. You definitely think of carbo veg. Tongue cold, black, swollen. That's definitely Hippocratic. That's a getting close to death there, buddy. Scorbutic gums with blood. Now that sounds like mercury there. Scorbutic gums. Gums are very pale and bleeding. Very loose and bleeding, anyways, nosebleed and daily attacks with pale face. That's a three. So the body's trying to push things out, whether it's a nosebleed, the leukorrhea, all this cough and stuff. The body's trying to push some things out. Varicose veins. This is one of the medicines you could use for that. Cough, worse, moist, warm weather. I think Carbo animalis. What was it? Well, anyways, I'll read that later, I think. But the moist, warm weather, especially at night, really bothers the cough. Acrid, corrosive moisture from rectum. That's a three. Bluish, white, burning hemorrhoids. So bluish is big time. They got blue hemorrhoids. You think of carbo veg. They could be white, but there's burning again. Burning, burning, burning. Let's see. Okay, wounds heal. Then they break out again. That's, you think of carbo veg. They're calendula, a few other ones are like that. But when they heal and then they break out again, you're thinking carbo veg. Blue, cold and bruised. So the skin's cold, it's blue, and any bruises. Bruises are a few other different remedies, but if you have a bruise, which is that blood underneath the skin, you think of carbo veg. Black and blue marks, we call them. Moist with hot perspiration. So that's very interesting. It's a cold sweat, but they have hot perspiration, moist out of the skin. That's a three. Rash with burning. So there's that burning again and a rash. And itching. Worse in the evening in bed. That's a sulfur situation, and serenum. They have that itching and burning while they're in bed from the heat. Gangrene starts in toes, and that can be the the senile gangrene too, and bed sores. So all this bed sores and this maybe gangrene from lack of circulation, and that you'd consider as varicose ulcers. You consider carbo veg, arsenicum, and anthro something or other. I forget what the rest of that word is. That medicine. Breast, indurated lump of axillary gland. So with the breast problems, they have hardening of the glands under the armpits. Prostration after feeding. So they feed the baby and they're just worn out. Hard and swollen. The breasts are hard and swollen. Once window open. This is medical. Never well since illness. So any illnesses, and they're not better since, you might consider carbo veg, and then you go back to whatever medicine was helping them out. But they want that window open. State of collapse. So they fall over and they collapse. Hemorrhage from anywhere. Weakness. Flatulence. Feeder. Feeder is bad smells. The flatulence is bad. Or they have air hunger. any kind of, they just can't get enough air. Lack of reaction after an attack. So whether it's a whatever kind of attack, they can have no reaction. They're just laying there. Blueness, you give that to them and the reaction comes back, and then you can work on what's going on, what happened. Blueness and decomposition. So they're blue, and they're that's where that gangrene comes in. They're not healing as much. They're not getting the oxygen. Oxygen will go around the body to heal things. Septic conditions, any kind of septicemia on that, awakes often from cold limbs. So the cold limbs wakes them up. Digestion is slow. Food putrefies. Now this is why they're having all this gas in that, because their digestion is not working right, and their food's putrefying, causing them to have them chest pains, probably headaches and things. Simplest food distresses. So they any kind of just something little distresses. So I'm sure they're not wanting to eat because they're just having problems there. Belching and heaviness, fullness, sleepiness. So this anorexia and that can be, basically from, not, having digestive issues. They just don't want to eat because it just causes so many problems. But they have all this belching, this heaviness, this fullness, and they get sleepy when they eat. Contractive pains, extended chest with distension. So distension of the abdomen, uh, it's like a contractive situation down there, and the pains are extended to the chest. And that's why I say anytime I got a lot of gas, my heart seems to hurt. Icy coldness is the temperature. That's 3. There's a lot of icy coldness with blueness and all that. Alternates chill and heat. This can be in flus, colds, all that, yellow fever, or whatever. It's good for yellow fever. Carbo veg feels closed. The throat feels closed. Abdomen sores, so they got sores on the throat. Hawks black bloody mucus, and they sweat easily. So nausea and tinnitus, which is in the ears, nausea and all this going on with this carbo veg. All right, so let's get to it because I don't have much time. Let's get comfy real quick because this is going to take a little bit. Carbo veg, it is suited to conditions where there's a lack of reaction, like opium. Opium, lack of reaction. Gelsemium, they're just laying there. They got a flu and a cold. I told the lady, I said, go down and get some gelsemium. The girl that had COVID was just laying there. That's the only symptom I got. Oh, she's just laying there. Give her gelsemium. I could have been opium, could have been garbo veg. I didn't have no symptoms, but just laying there, not moving, pale. Now, if she was bluish, I would have went with carbo veg. Opium's lack of reaction too. To low states of vital powers, so the vitality is really low, where the venous system is engorged. So it's not moving, but areas are engorged with blood. Debility of great intensity than Carbo animalis. So Carbo animalis has the debility, but Carbo veg has it worse. To children after exhausting disease, to old people, leading symptoms are numbness of limbs. So the children, they have this exhausting disease, and now they're very debilitated. You would think of Carbo animalis and Carbo veg. Carbo veg is worse, and anytime, never well since, you'd consider carbo veg. Numbness of limbs, burning pains, as also carbo animalis has, both products of a burning process. So carbo animalis, carbo veg, they both have that burning. Great debility as soon as he makes the least effort. So they get up to do something, they start, oh man, they just lay back down. Could be in colds, flus, whatever. Guernsey considers carbo veg, or it could be never well since. They just get up and start moving and they can't function. Carbo veg is especially suited to cachectic individuals whose vital powers have become weakened, and that's basically what cachectic is. In cases where diseases seem to have been engrafted on the system by reason of the depressing influence of some prior derangement. So what does that all mean? So it's been engrafted on the system. So your vital force gets imprinted, my mentor talks about, on your system, on your vital force from the influence of some disease. So you have pneumonia, like I've had pneumonia, walking pneumonia when I was young. And I can remember seeing little green men on the on the curtain rods. I was, I'll get them, Mom. And that was after I threw up. So that imprinted on me. Now I a lot of times have lung situations going on. Uh, Diseases, okay, so it's been imprinted on the body, and that's where homeopathy really shines, when it's something's imprinted on a person, and later on, you could peel off layers. They've had a grief, you peel that off. Now you see this lung stuff come up, and it was from a prior disease. That's where the etiology, or what happened, timeline of when did this happen, what happened, and that always helps you to figure out which medicine it is. Another form of debility is that following childbirth causes falling out of hair. So after childbirth, their hair's falling out, you'd think of carbo veg. Among other effects of carbo veg are aversion to darkness, fear of ghosts, excessive accumulation of gas in stomach and intestines. Stomach feels full and tense from the flatulence, from the gas. Great pain in stomach on account of flatulence, more gas. Worse, especially on lying down. Great desire for air, must be fanned, wants to be fanned hard. Worse from warmth. On the other hand, it has cough, worse entering cold air from a warm room. And I always say you get these colds from people are in a warm room, they go out into the cold, they get certain colds come up. Someone's out in a hot and they come into a air conditioned room, they get sick. Coldness and characteristics: cold breath, as in cholera. Cold knees, cold but wants to be fanned. So they're cold, but they want to be fanned because of the air hunger. The mental state of carbo veg is one of torpor and indolence, not moving, all that kind of stuff, which distinguishes it from arsenicum, because arsenicum's they're restless and nervous. Carbo veg just wants it later. They don't want to move in many cases. And arsenicum can be considered in, like I said, with varicose veins, ulcers, arsenicum, and the other medicine there. Worse in the morning. Okay, many cases. Slow thinking, worse in the morning on waking, indifference. So this is what happens in the morning to them. There is also peevishness, and they're easily angered. Vertigo from stomach with fainting, especially at meals. Lividity is a common indication. Mottled skin, round ulcers, indolent gangrene, varicose veins of arms, legs, vulva, Hippocratic countenance, death looking countenance. Cold breath, collapse with cold knees, dull headache, and occiput with confusion of mind. Proceeding from occiput to forehead, dull, heavy aching over eyes in warm room. Buzzing in airs, very sensitive to pressure of hat. So that's the headache stuff. The congestive symptoms of carbo veg are those of poisonings by carbonic acid. Pulse thready, face pale, covered with cold sweat, desire to be fanned, anxiety without restlessness. That's the difference between arsenicum and carbo veg. Arsenicum's restless, carbo veg isn't. Dyspnea, can't get their breath. Hemorrhages are frequent. Nosebleeds or hemorrhage from throat. In dysentery, from the bowels. So throat, nosebleeds, throat, in colds and flus. Dysentery, it can be bleeding from the bowels. Menorrhagia, which is a lot of bleeding, and metrorrhagia is pain in the with from their menses, very painful, with burning pains across the sacrum and spine. Hemorrhage from lungs, so this could help a lady through those bad periods where they just got a later, they got this pain in their back and this burning and that, and they can't move. Dyspnea from chronic orchitis, which is heart stuff. They can't, of course, the veins, it's not moving. So this orchitis, which is heart stuff, causes them not to get enough oxygen. It corresponds to fever of many types: typhoid, intermittent, yellow fever, hectic, and cholera. I don't have time to explain all them. In intermittent, of long standing, where quinine, which is mercury, has been abused. And that's what they used a lot back then. Thirst, only during chill. That would help you to determine between a couple medicines. Feet ice cold up to knees, heat and burning flushes, sweat sour or offensive, weak mind, befogged. So that's where that stupidity comes in. Their mind's weak and they're befogged. The carbo veg could help open it up. A.H. Birdsall has recorded a typical case of carbo veg intermittent. That's fever. A man, 36, had fever 8 months, partially suppressed by arsenic and quinine. So mercury and arsenic they were using for it. type of tertian fever, which is every 48 hours they'd have that fever. And that's for 8 months this guy had it. Headache for 1 or 2 hours before chill. Chill always from 9 to 10 a.m. Beginning in feet and hands, spreading over the whole body. Nails very blue. Thirst with chill. These are the symptoms this guy had. Cold stage lasts 2 or 3 hours, followed immediately by a hot stage. Much heat in head and face, which is flushed red. Thirstlessness, probably during that fever. Sweating stage short. Sweat is sour. It smells. Aprexia, okay, sweat easily, especially from least warmth. Awakens in morning, always with slight sour smelling sweat. Weak, dispirited, flatulent. A single dose of Carbo Veg cured. 8 months this poor fellow suffered. They were giving him arsenicum and mercury and all this stuff, not working. One dose of Carbo Veg cured. There were only 3 more attacks, each of them diminished in intensity. So, he was still getting the fevers and that, but it diminished after that Carbo Veg. There is catarrh from warm, moist atmosphere. The cough of Carbo Veg is worse on entering cold air from a warm room. Hoarseness from damp air, worse morning or evening. Cough caused by a sensation as of sulfur fumes or in larynx. It's probably a burning there. There is leucorrhea, greenish yellow leucorrhea. Worse in morning. The leucorrhea excoriates, it burns the skin. Many symptoms occur during menses: headache, itching, burning, soreness, and smarting at vulva and anus and hemorrhoids of anus. The menstrual discharge is corrosive, that's also burning the skin, and has a strong pungent odor, premature and profuse, preceded by and followed by leucorrhea. After the menses, they get leucorrhea. Perineum is moist. That's between the anus and the genitals. Raw oozing. Carboveg has weak digestion and enormous production of flatulence. That's a big keynote. Better by eructations, burping, or flatulence, farting. Flatulence accompanies many other complaints as asthma and heart disorders. So this is all stomach stuff causing the asthma, the heart disorders, and that. Carbo Veg could help clear that up. Heaviness, full feeling and burning, aversion to fat or meat, to milk, which causes flatulence, desire for coffee, which does not relieve, for acids, for sweet and salt things, burning, itching on skin, frozen limbs, chillblains, any frozen limbs you'd think of Carbo Veg, and chillblains afterwards. Excoriation between toes, tinea capitis, which is an infection on the scalp, like a dandruff type of thing. Scald head, scalp very sensitive, feels as if bruised. Whooping cough with pain at base of brain. Excessive gagging cough in the morning, compelling him to vomit everything. Immediately after breakfast, okay, Drosera, that's another medicine for the damp weathers and coughs and colds and that, is complementary to Carbo Veg in this. So any that coughing and throwing up, and you're given Carbo Veg, and it somewhat helps but doesn't clear it up, you think of Drosera. Bedwetting, which is worse in morning after the first sleep. I'm way over, but the heck with it. I'm already this far in. I want to do the comparatives because they got some great stuff here. RAF, I don't know what the end of that medicine is, RAF something. In flatulence, causticum, lachesis, eupatorin, per, phosphorus, and rumex in hoarseness. And that can be hoarseness from coughs and that. Rumex is worse 4 a.m. and 1 a.m. or 11 p.m. So their cough and that comes on at 4 a.m. or it comes on at 11 p.m. Causticum worse in morning from dry cold. Carbo Veg is worse in the evening from damp evening air. So you consider causticum if it's a dry cold situation. But if it's you use Carbo Veg when it's in the evening, and that's in the morning for causticum, and in the evening with damp evening air. So damp air and dry air would be the and morning and evening would be the differentials you'd use to determine between causticum and Carbo Veg. Camphor, China, in hemorrhages, intermittents, which is fevers, hectic disorders of alcoholics, you consider those two along with Carbo Veg. Ipecac in hemorrhages and intermittents. So Ipecac would be another one in these bleeding and fevers. Mane, I don't know what the rest of that medicine is. In intermittence with coldness of legs, opium, sulfur, and serenum in deficient reaction. So someone's laying there not moving, you would consider opium, sulfur, serenum, and carbo-veg. Sulfuric acid in dyspepsia of alcoholics, so that's heartburn. Carbo-veg has more putridity, more smelly. Sulfuric acid, more sourness. So more sour burping, and when they carbo-veg burps, it stinks, basically. Phosphorus is easily bleeding, ulcers, and any bleeding is usually phosphorus. Pulsatilla, bad effects from fat food and pastries. So that's, that rich food, carbo-veg, and uh, fat food and pastries. Also, you'd consider pulsatilla in that. Sulfur and acrid swelling, menses. Erysipelas of breasts. So you'd consider sulfur in those situations along with carbo-veg. Arsenicum embellus perennis in effects of ice cream and ice water in hot weather. So that would be for the stomach stuff. Nux vomica in dyspepsia, which is heartburn, easily angered. So those both of those are in carbo-veg. Effects of debauchery after drinking. Nux vomica is thin, spare, yellow, and wiry. Carbo-veg is sluggy, stout, and lazy. That's how you tell the difference when someone overdid it with alcohol or food and that. Sequelia in hemorrhages, cold breath, coldness, worse warmth. Calc, carboanimalis, and stremonia in aversion to darkness. So this is how you're determining between different medicines for different situations. Lachesis and weak digestion. Lachesis craves milk. Carbo-veg has aversion to milk. And carbo-veg doesn't like tight clothes around the waist. Lachesis don't like tight clothes around the throat. Intolerance of closing around waist is carbo-veg. Intermittent fever, flashes of burning heat without thirst. Sepia and bearing down in rectum and vagina. Along with carbo-veg has strong odor of menses, which sepia has not. That's how you determine between those two in mense problems. Rus tox in strains of typhus. So different typhus disease, you'd consider carbo-veg and Rus tox. Colchicum in cholera, along with carbo-veg. Cold breath prostration, cupromed also. Carbonium for spasms connecting to in tongue, down trachea and limbs, tingling sensation. Lycopodium, arsenicum, China, carbo-veg contains potash. I don't know what that. Okay, arsenica, ambra. These are all antidoted by arsenicum, ambra, camphor, coffee, lachesis, night. Okay, ferrum. This medicine antidotes the effects of putrid meat, fish, rancid fats, salt or salt meats. It also antidotes China, lachesis, and mercury. Complementary is China, Drosera, calcarb for stitches in heart. So you have stitches in heart, you're given carbo-veg, it's not working. You would consider China, Drosera, calicarb. Okay, I'm over quite a bit, but this is a big medicine, 45 minutes doesn't even do it justice. And that's why that community, man, you could really come in and start learning how to utilize this. And I would suggest people get acclimated to homeopathic medicine, because I don't know what's going to happen with the medical community here. The insurance is looking funny. Hopefully they'll do something about that. You're going to pay a ton of money to make sure you stay healthy. Why not take control? That's why, as a health coach, I say what you eat, how you move, the stress you're under, all these different things, your mental stability and that, your emotional stability all goes towards your health. You need to start learning how to take care of yourself, not worrying about not bowing down to someone with a white coat saying, okay, whatever you say. I know my brother-in-law, he's taken so many medicines. One of them, he was clenching, he was going, when we were eating. I said, what the hell's that? He said, oh, that's the one medicine they were giving us. So a lot of side effects with those medicines. No side effects with these. You can prove the medicine, but as you see, you take carbo-veg, you take too much, you use which ones was it? Antidoted by arsenicum. You give arsenicum, it takes it out. So you give this medicine, they prove it, you get all these symptoms, or a lot of these symptoms from the people, you give them arsenicum, it cancels it out right away. Take a they do provings, I guess, or whatever, blind studies they say on these drugs that they're creating, and the people get sick. There's no way to antidote that stuff, So that's why on them commercials you see they say, well, it could cause this, could cause that, could cause the other, could your liver fall out, whatever, all that stuff. What do they do to fix that once they poison you with it? I don't know, but I can uh, give you this medicine, and if and a lot of times they were given too high doses when this first started, and people would get real aggravated. That's not the way Hahnemann went. He finally experimented where it's slow healing. I love when I heal, my wife, and she's like running around, and and then I say, oh yeah, by the way, how's your hernia? Oh, it's gone. And that's just from one dose in a bottle of water of what was it, Leadum, or no, lycopodium, I think it was. But anyways, um, that's how quick it can affect, and it can be quite easy to use. So, it can be difficult in certain situations, but things like that bump on my wife's foot, they don't know what to do. She said they called a bunch of doctors. Hey, look at this. I've never seen this before. Okay. Never gave her a prescription, never said what they could do with it. I guess they don't know. So that's a harder one for me to take care of, so I'm still basically working on it. But anyways, that is homeopathic medicine. You can age, but you don't have to get old. My goodness, that's a big medicine, buddy.